We have U.S. Surgeon General Vivek Murthy. He's calling upon Congress on Monday to issue a warning label for visitors to social media platforms to combat what he calls an emergency mental health crisis amongst the youth. Adolescents who spend more than 3 hours a day on social media face double the risk of anxiety and depression symptoms. And the average daily use in this age group as of the summer of 2023 was 4.8 hours. Additionally, nearly half of adolescents say social media makes them feel worse about their bodies. And this isn't the first time that he has stressed this issue. This is a recurring issue that he's brought up. In May 2023, he issued an advisory. He recommended that parents immediately set limits on phone use and urged Congress to swiftly develop health and safety standards for technology platforms. He called on tech companies to make changes, to share internal data on the health impact of their products, to allow independent safety audits, and restrict features like push notifications, autoplay, and infinite scroll, which he says prey on developing brains and contribute to excessive use. And a 2019 APA study found that the proportion of young adults with suicidal thoughts or other suicide-related outcomes increased 47% from 2008 to 2017, just as social media use began to climb. When asked if a warning from the Surgeon General would prompt them to limit or monitor their children's social media use, 76% of people in one recent survey of Latino parents said yes. So I have a lot of thoughts on social media use. If you guys follow me on social media, you might notice that I really don't post very often. If I do, it's because I made something that I think is cool, like I baked something. But I don't get on there very much. And I used to get on there a lot more. But over time, especially doing this kind of work, you're already very inundated in some really terrible things throughout the day. So when I'm not working, I'm not on my phone. I'm not really on social media very much. And I do worry about, future generations. And just to give my age a little bit, I graduated from high school during a time when there was no social media. We barely had cell phones. I think the iPhone came out, what was that, 2007? I graduated 2006. So we still had like Nokia flip phones, that kind of thing. We had a Razor. If you were cool, you had a Razor. But there was no social media. We had MySpace, and MySpace to this day is the best thing. It was the best thing, right? And it was a really good balance of social media, but not whatever it is that we have today. And I do worry about things like that because it does prey on your mental health. And if you don't have a strong foundation going into something like that, which a lot of these kids do not because they're simply too young, then I wonder what it's doing to their overall development, not just mentally and physically, but also socially. What do you think about that, Farron?
I will say I agree 100% with the Surgeon General's recommendation here. I do think we need those warnings, and just kind of, to your point as well. I used to spend a ton of time on Twitter back when it was called Twitter, and not necessarily because I'm just an Elon Musk hater. I do hate him, by the way, but I've stopped that. Like I will hop on Twitter, probably a couple times a day, just kind of dumbly going through my phone, but I don't post anymore, really. I don't do that. I'm barely on Instagram as much anymore, too. And a lot of it does have to do with, there was a point, this is many, many years ago, when I would see people that, I had gone to school with, and they're doing all these great and wonderful things. And what am I doing? I'm sitting in this, studio all day, working my butt off, nights, weekends, all this stuff. They're out in the mountains, they're hiking, they're having fun. This sucks. My life sucks. Their life is so great. And it's like, okay, wait, hold up. No, that is a toxic way to go about thinking. And social media does perpetuate that. And so I can see that with the younger folks, whether it's something as simple as, we're hanging out in our pool in our giant, wonderful backyard, and you're sitting there in your room with a, 10-year-old iPad, barely able to see this. Haha. It can absolutely destroy the psyche of a young child, seeing what others have and knowing that they can't have that. It truly does have an effect. And that's just one tiny aspect of it. When you also have the cyberbullying that takes place with these young users and just the abuse that they suffer, the scams that now target these young individuals. It is overwhelming. And, I had mentioned I've worked at a law firm for 20 years. The firm I work at is actually handling lawsuits now regarding social media addiction and predation on young users. So there is a legal aspect to this that is being worked on right now. Again, as I've said, you don't just immediately file a lawsuit. They've been doing these investigations for many, many years, finding, individuals that have been damaged, and now they're moving forward with lawsuits, working with state attorneys generals. So this is a problem that is far deeper than people realize. There's lots of things that unfortunately I'm not able to say, but just trust me when I say this is not just, oh, well, kids feel bad because they're online. No. When these lawsuits really get going, y'all are going to see some stuff that is going to shock you in ways I don't think people realize they can be shocked. That's how bad it is. And that's all I'm allowed to say.
Oh my God, I don't even want to know what that is. And I think it's true, because whenever things like social media, technology these days, right? Technology in general rolls things out so quickly, at an unprecedented rate, unlike anything we've ever seen in human history, as far as how quickly these new technologies get into the hands of people. And with social media, it started off kind of slow. You had like Zanga. I don't know if you guys remember Zanga. That was my jam. You had Zanga, you had MySpace, and then you had like Friendster, but then you kind of had Facebook. But even that, it was a much more mild version of what it is today. But as it's rolling out, like there's no time to study how these things are affecting people, how they're affecting people's brains, how they're affecting society, and the ways in which that we interact with each other, right? And with our environments and with our country and things like that. And I've always kind of been skeptical. I'm like inherently skeptical of most things, but I've always been very skeptical of social media. I'm not an early adopter by any means. I kind of will watch things and see how I want to interact with it. But over time, I've just come further and further away from it because I feel more detached from the world whenever I'm on there. So any final thoughts, Farron, before we wrap up?
Yeah, no, but just you bringing back, the talk of MySpace just takes me back to that. Like
What was your song on your MySpace? Did you have a song on yours?
I kind of bounced around between like Newfound Glory and I had a little bit of All Time Low.
Yeah.
Just kind of switching those out, depending on, relationship status at the time. If things were horrible, you got to go a little, but yeah, it was kids today. You kids today have no idea how good we used to have it.
It was better back then. Mine was Cherry Waves by the Deftones. That was like, I had that one on my profile for a while.
When you click the join button and become a tier 2 member, you get access to all of our weekly top 10 lists. What are you waiting for?